Now we're recording. Welcome to the Stanley Street Social. My name's Alex Clements. I'm here with Campbell Flakemore and a very special guest, Cadel Evans. Thanks for joining us, Cadel.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you back. It's been I think a couple of years since we did that
2 years,
inaugural
January,
podcast with you in January. Yeah, very early days for the Stanley Street Social.
Very early days. Recorded in the conference room of a hotel in Geelong, if I recall. Novotel, our good friends at Novotel Geelong, a host hotel for the Great Ocean Road Race riders, if I remember correctly. No. Thanks for having me. And tell me, how is the situation there? You guys are in lockdown, and are you staying sane? How is it going?
Yeah, I guess we're staying
Tour de France helped. The Tour de France helped get me through. But yeah, it's pretty quiet here. It's pretty quiet.
I guess it is, because we had it in March and April. But I was in Switzerland, so we didn't have limits on the time we could spend outdoors exercising. Everyone was out walking their dog, walking the forest, riding their bike. It was a bit ridiculous, but much easier to stay sane. But of course now life's not returned to normal, but much more normal, and you guys are coming close to the end, right?
Yeah, the countdown is on to some sort of freedom to head outside our 5K bottle and our 2-hour time limit. But yeah, I guess Campbell said it's good. Yeah, we're up to 2 hours now.
I've got little kids. If I go for a ride, I've got to do it in 2 hours because I can't leave poor Steffi alone with the babies for more than 2 hours.
That's all you should be doing now. You're retired.
Yeah, I got a few good 2-hour loops, hard hilly ones. Yeah, no, I think in 2 hours I can get to a 1,200 meter peak and back from my house, which works out pretty well.
Solid.
Yeah.
What does a day look like for Cadel now?
Now of course I have my race in Australia, or the Great Ocean Road Race, of course, and I'm based in Switzerland for family reasons. I have a 9-year-old son who lives over here. He lives in Italy now, just over the border, which with this sounds simple, but with the COVID restrictions and everything, very complicated. I'm brand ambassador for BMC, the bike company, of course, of which I rode with, and that is normally events, doing things, testing equipment, being involved in the planning and strategy and so on. But of course, we were going to go and we were going to take a group to the Tour de France time trial because it wasn't actually so far away from the head office. But of course, with the situation right now, we decided not to because, well, other than the fact we may have had to do a 5-day quarantine to come back out of France, I personally wasn't very enthusiastic to go there because, of course, if you get on a train or a bus with this thing going on, it's not your chance of being safe. And another thing in my life, I didn't want to bring any illnesses back into my house because you guys are counting down to 2 weeks to the end of lockdown. We're counting down 2 weeks to a Cadel number 4 coming into the world. So it's coming up soon, 2 to 3 weeks now, or under 3 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And actually, I might have a guest here. Well, just let me check.
Special guest.
Between Stefania with a large stomach and a baby about to wake up. It's always the case. Anyway, no. Basically, I spend my time between doing things with the races and so on. But really, I dedicate my time, and especially with this lockdown thing, what I used to dedicate my time and energy to, cycling and racing. Now I'm able to do it with my family, which has one day when you become a dad, if you have that opportunity, it's the thing to invest your time in your children is probably the best thing of them all.
Are you still like a cycling fan? Like, do you watch much racing, and did you catch any of the tour this year?
This year, I missed the racing. The first race back, we got in the car, family got in the car, and we drove down to Tuscany and watched Strade Bianche. I took Steffi and her father had just retired, gone into retirement, so they came down. I took them on the longest sector there after Acciano and took them through the section and explained it to them, and it was fun. This year we missed racing because there wasn't much of it on. But as a fan, I'm more of a fan now than I was when a rider. I think as a rider, you're one thing I really notice now, and you would have seen this as well, Campbell. As you step away from it, you lose out on the details, but you get a bit of a broader picture. When I was racing, I already had a lot going on in the background with my racing and outside of the racing. The fact that I became a race organizer the day of my last race, before I became a race organizer, before that, I became involved with race organization while I was racing. And after I stopped racing, I became much more involved in the bike industry. So as well as stepping further back from the racing and not being involved in the details and not being involved in the latest dietary supplement or whatever, or who's making the smoothest ceramic bearings for the lowest rolling resistance, for the things that the pro riders are looking at now. I'm looking more at race organisation, future racing, teams coming in 3 years, rules, technology, improvements in manufacture for changing things in the bike industry and so on. And that's the bike weight goes down thanks to the introduction of carbon fiber development, and the cost of it to put it into mass production. So it's been a great learning curve to be in the race organisation side, the bike industry side, and I've been further away from racing, but because of that, I've become more of a fan. And I pinned a number on yesterday just out of a chance. You guys in lockdown sounds complete strange, but I participated in a mass participation comp race yesterday. It was kind of bizarre, but really, I thought I really needed this. I miss it.
Do you, as a winner of the Tour de France, let's use the example of a normal year, not a COVID year, do you get any special treatment? Did the ASO put on a bit of a show for you?
Put it this way. Well, I can say, I lost the Tour de France 8 times and I won it once. But just looking at Pogacar, his life is going to change from this day onwards, or from Sunday onwards, Monday. Today's his 22nd birthday, isn't it? My life changed from that day, from the 2011, with the day the 2011 tour finished. My life changed from that day onwards. And with this whole lockdown thing and things, I'm still trying to slow my life down, to be honest. And this actually came at a really good time. The whole world slowed down, because I've had my foot on the brake trying to slow things down in my life, just to all great things, great, amazing experiences from how my life changed, but also at the same time, you still want to be a normal person. Or when you can't be a normal person, you actually realise that it's kind of important to your sanity to be able to be a normal person, at least occasionally. So,
is there like a cool club? Like if you win the Masters, you get like a green jacket and you get to come back to like the Masters, and there's all this hoo-ha. Is there anything in the tour like that, or you're not really recognised as much as they are?
And sorry, in the green jacket, I missed the.
So like at the Masters, like a big golf tournament, they get a green jacket, and every year, like past winners come back, and there's like a dinner and all this sort of cake.
Oh, okay.
Is there something like that?
I'm actually invited to all of the Tour de France things, but you've got to get in an airplane and go to Paris to go to them, and that means being away from your family and stuff. So I don't go to all of them. Mm-hmm. But going to the tour as a fan, all doors are open for me. Basically, I get a pass every year. It's got my photo on it, and it's got a little infinity symbol. So I sort of go anywhere I want, I suppose, which is the envy of a pass. That's the envy of many visitors to the tour, I assume. But you get, there's a lot of fringe benefits. Yeah, I've got a yellow bike too. That was for retirement. Without going too much in the detail, but my life really changed. The way people look at you, the way people treat you, the way you're introduced. And I don't think I've been introduced to even a small group of people or something. I know I was out walking outside my house and someone had a group of guests there, and this is Cadel Evans, he did this and that, and you're sort of like, everywhere you go, you're introduced as. So I suppose I'm just the puppet that carries it now. No, it's really my life completely changed, the recognition, and I couldn't believe how far I didn't know people in Thailand watch the Tour de France, but they do, because when you go there, all these people know who you are, and it's kind of bizarre.
Why do you think? Why do you think the Tour has so much further reach than any other race? Like, it captures people that don't watch cycling at all, but the Tour, people you don't even know that watch it are talking about it, and they're messaging you about it. It's crazy, isn't it?
So the Tour has become on the world sporting stage. It's bigger than cycling. Cycling on its own is big within the world of cycling, but beyond that, you have the Olympics and the Tour de France, which is beyond the world of cycling. So you're on the main sports stage, along with Formula One, along with maybe one of World Cup soccer, and I'm speaking about the international sporting stage. I'm saying this from the other side of the world, so I don't want to be. I know the grand final's gone to Brisbane this year, which for Melburnians is a huge thing, but on the other side of the world here, it's the Olympics got cancelled. That's sort of the news in sport at the moment. Yeah. Still, and so the Tour de France is on that stage, and as a cyclist, it's the one race where you go into that world sporting arena, I suppose. The Tour de France, let's remember, it was originally the concept was to sell more newspapers. So back in 1902 or whatever, 1901, 1902, the only way to follow a bike race was to buy the newspaper and read the results, and then the race would eventually come to your part of France for the French people, and they would buy it. They would watch the race go by and go back and buy the newspaper and read the results and follow the race through to the end. It then went from there to become a tourist promotion with the advent of television. The fact that the Tour is always run in the European summer holidays was people could plan their holidays around visiting the Tour, so it got a lot of spectators. On television, France is a particular country where you have a large country which is all quite spectacular. If we had a 3-week tour in Australia, we'd have a few sections where you're riding through, I don't know, the Nullarbor Plain, which, like some stage at the Vuelta, don't look as good on TV, so it doesn't draw people in to watch it. Whereas watching the Tour de France, of course, it's just this unfolding of spectacular scenery and coastlines and mountains and so on. So it's aesthetically very good on television. So with the advent of television and so on, that was another step in its favour. And then it became known as the toughest sporting event in the world, which of course draws anyone who has any inkling of interest of human endeavour to watch it and understand it and see Roglic under that pressure, not to be able to deal with it, or these amazing feats of endurance that we've seen over the last few years, and the images of Floyd Landis putting water bottles over his head were so repeated. That image has been so replayed around the world so many times. 2006 tour, and that's why the tour has become so big, or part of it.
Yeah,
you talk about the life-changing element of it. It happened at the back end of your career. Can you imagine winning the Tour de France at 21 years old?
I was reading the comments of in the press of Eddie Merckx about like Egan Bernal won at 22, and then this year he didn't come back. Ulrich won young, and it wasn't good for him. What I see in the development of sports people, and this also applies to young people who go into music, or unfortunately, touching on before, having a normal life. In normal life, we develop and we mature, and we become adults at our own rate of progression. Unfortunately, when you're in the Tour at 21, you're sort of thrust into this environment. You're not thrust into an environment. The environment forms around you. All of a sudden, people are going to treat Tadej very differently. Tadej very differently. Everyone's going to treat him, as a Tour de France winner. And I hope in his growing up, he can handle this, because the problems that we see with people, these people who go into music and become famous and things, and they go into drugs and things like this, because all of a sudden, one thing that people don't realize is, like, we live in this world where everyone wants this searches for attention, but on the other side, there are people who get so much attention that it drives them crazy, because they can't. It becomes a stress for them, and they can't relieve it, because someone who's so famous, I'm thinking, was it Amy Winehouse? I'm thinking was because of this. Jan Ulrich suffered because of this. Marco Pantani suffered because of this. They're cycling, Jan and Marco. I think they were quite introverted as people, so their tension stressed them earlier. An extroverted person is like lifted by that, whereas an introverted person is that weighs on them. But without going too far into it, I hope Sergey can keep focused on doing what he did to got him where he am, and because he's got to continue to do that to continue to progress, and he's going to be thrust into this world of, also unfortunately people are going to try and take advantage of him, make money from him, and so on. And that's where you have to have a very clear head and a clear mind, and you also need help to deal with this, because it's the requests and things here. You can't deal with it on your own. And I don't think people understand that. But in the end, his main thing in life now is to stay healthy and train for next year's Tour de France. That takes a lot of time and energy. If there's people to make money out of his time and energy, they're going to offer him that money, or sort of manipulate him a bit so that he does what they want. And it's not just one person that's going to do this. It's going to be everywhere he goes. There's going to be at least one person who's going to want to do this. And to manage that for someone at that age, I think is going to be difficult.
Did you see his before? You go.
I'm interested in, like, if you had a piece of advice for him, Cadel, like what would you, because I really struggle with the fact that he's won the Tour de France. You talk about the environment changes around him. He doesn't get to choose the environment. How would you tell him to manage that, and how would you give him a piece of advice to take him to the 2021 Tour de France?
My recommendation would be, remember what got you to where you were. Never forget that, and every day repeat one of those actions, whether it's calling your mum or washing the dishes or something, washing your bike or whatever, just to keep things real, because things are going to change for him. He's going to be thrust into this unrealistic world, which not many people experience, and not many people can offer advice to. So he's not going to be at 21. He needs to have good advice, but there's no one to turn to. And two. Go and buy a property out in the country, somewhere where he loves to ride and be, that's away from everyone. He can go and escape, and put a big gate on there, and so that when it all gets too much, he can just get in his car or whatever and go there and escape, and have his own little sanctuary with his close friends or something. That would be the other bit of this.
Did you see that performance coming in the time trial? You were in a very similar situation. You had a deficit to Andy Schleck, who you were probably expected, or there was a good chance that you were going to take time back. But I don't think anyone really expected Tadej to even take any time out of Roglic, and he absolutely torched him.
Yeah.
What's happening on that penultimate day TT, like for you, and did you see it happening 2 days ago?
I think Pogacar's advantage was that he was unknown, he was young, and he was underestimated. And that's where to go to the Tour not as a favourite is so much easier than to go there as a favourite, because next year he's going to have a team to defend, and no one's going to let him go anywhere, and knowing that he can do this kind of time trial at the end. So what worked from this year, he's going to have a whole different plan next year. A whole different team and a whole different group of people around him. But I don't think anyone expected it. I certainly didn't expect. I know Primoz quite well personally, and what amazed me about Primoz and talking to him about his training and preparation as a ski jumper, how well conditioned they are, how much time they work with a sports psychologist, because they've got that 30-second window and they've got to do everything. Months and months of training is put into that thing, and if they stuff up, which is what ended Primož's career. If you've seen the crash he had when they stuff up, they can die. So his capacity to deal with pressure and things, I think, is better than anyone in the Tour peloton. All this being to say that I was probably one of the last people to expect Pogacar to do the time trial that he did, but looking at the shock on the faces of Dumoulin and Van Aert and these guys, they were just as shocked as I felt. We're 48 hours after the event now, and I'm still sitting there going,
crazy.
How did that happen? Did that really happen? I'm still trying to believe it all myself. And then in the end, if you look at the results, it's like you had the best time trialists in the world in the guys, the strongest riders right now, Van Aert, Dumoulin. Richie did a fantastic time trial. That was a time trial to win to win the Tour de France time trial. And then all of a sudden, a minute faster, you have got this 21-year-old. You're like, hang on, they're riding bikes. He's riding a scooter. It's like, whoa. So yeah, and that's where it's been incredible that when I raced as the Tour, the climbers would work together against me to distance me before the time trial. I'm going back to times when I remember Contador and Rasmussen collaborating together on the Axtodamant or something, and to distance me on the climbs, because it was to their advantage to at least get rid of me. Then they'd sort of, years gone by, whereas Pogacar, you just look at his build and you think on the flat, the first time check on the flat, it's like, you look at Roglic, he just doesn't look like he can go uphill, and then you look at Pogacar, it doesn't look like he can run on the flat, and here's Pogacar taking time on the flat. Well, anyway, it was great to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great example of what sport, the emotions that sport can bring us, how it brings us together or apart, and only sport can do that. Only sport and political disasters.
How do you look at Roglic's ride then? Was it a good performance? Could you see that something was a little bit off? How do you kind of analyze that?
So yeah, and going back to how solid he is psychologically, I was sort of like, oh wow, if he's that well conditioned, like with sports psychologists, and he cracked under the pressure, I think what Primož did, and I completely understand. You're there in the yellow jersey in the Tour, you're going to win the Tour. You're pretty sure that's what everyone's expecting, Primož included. They were so solid, they didn't do anything wrong. The whole team was so good, and so okay, here you go, and then you go 5K down the road, and here's this little climber guy who's taken like 5 seconds of you in 5K. You're like, hang on a second, I've got to push a bit harder. The thing with a time trial, what I always try to explain with people is, it's kind of like if you're driving your car and you've got your foot to the floor and the car's going flat out. If you push the accelerator further, the car doesn't go any faster. If you're time trialing absolutely flat out and you push harder, you're not going to go any faster. You may even go slower. In sports psychology, the arousal U curve, over-ambition is actually you perform less, optimal level of arousal for optimal performance. So I think Primož went out and he was going good. But then you get this information, I'm going to lose the Tour, and you panic a bit. And I think what easy to say afterwards, but having been in this situation before, what you have to do, unfortunately, is you're getting this information on the radio, go, you got to go, keep going, go harder. Like, shit, I started out 100%. Within a kilometre, I got into my rhythm. I went to 110%, and then he's saying, go harder. Hang on a second. This guy's just way better than me. I can't. It's like you're out riding. Oh, I'll just follow this scooter up the hill. I can't. No, I'll follow as fast as I can at a rhythm I can maintain, and then if I've got anything left in the last kilometre, I'll give everything. Or if I can find anything in my toenails of energy to give, I'll lay it on the line. But you don't try and hang in the scooter for 5 meters and then you're sitting on the side of the road. You ride at a pace behind, and that's what. But when you're there in the Tour, losing the Tour, you can't. You're time trialing to win the Tour. You don't actually have much time to think. You don't have any time to think. Well, you do and don't. But if you slow down, you've got to go far. Primož had to go and ride his own rhythm, and I spoke to Richie before the time trial and GC, and he said, just focus on going for the stage win. Just focus on that, because that's a realistic objective that you can go for. And if you're good enough to do that, it's going to take care of all these things. Otherwise, Primoz, unfortunately, wearing the yellow jersey was, hang on, I've got to close that gap. I think he would have done a better performance. He still wouldn't have won the Tour, but he would have got more out of himself if he just focused on riding his best time trial and getting the best stage result.
How do you think Primoz is feeling now? You've had the experience of getting so close in the Tour de France. He was second twice, 20-odd seconds one year. Like, what's the feeling like getting second in the Tour?
Pretty well. When you're so close to winning it, I came second twice to the Tour, but I was coming from behind and I didn't quite make it. When you're there, I'm going to win it, and then to lose it, that would be much more disappointing. Like I say, I know Primoz well, and I'm just giving him a few days just to digest things before I contact him. But I think he's taken it reasonably well. He and his wife partner Nora, she's also a sports. She was an ex-cross-country skier. They've just had a small child, so I'm hoping that he can just go home and enjoy time with his son and sort of, okay, what's happened. Now let's go back to the drawing board and go back to next year. I hope that's how he's taking it. I think from what I saw, he seems to have taken it quite well, but it's pretty devastating because you're there and you think, oh, I've got this, and no, I haven't. And the difference in cycling, as we all know, there's 200 guys in the race, or now there's 160 in the Tour. There's one winner and 159 losers. It's kind of, cycling's a bit tough in that regard. You're there, the winner and loser.
Yeah. On to a more positive note, did you say you were talking to Richie before the time trial?
Just briefly, I was doing some things with the TV, and I said, "Oh, what would you say to Richie? Well, why don't you tell him?" I don't think he's changed his number, so I contacted him, and the fact that he even answered his phone was already a good sign. I think for Richie, it's been great. Where, like, not to the extent of Pogacar, but Richie being able to not have expectations and ride his own race has obviously been really good for him. So, just.
And what did you tell him?
Just go for the stage win. You're riding great. Just go for that. Just focus on that. Because of this, when you're in a time trial, it's better to focus on one thing. Well, we are men, right? We can't do more than one thing at once, right? But if we focus on one thing, maybe we can do it well. Time trialing's like that. You don't be distracted or dismayed, because also sometimes if you focus too much on one rider or your GC, and that guy, like in Primoz's case, that guy has an incredible day that you can't do anything about. Even if you ride the best time trial of your life, you're still 30 seconds or a minute back. But that upsets the performance you would have otherwise done if you were just focusing on yourself. So for that reason, I say to focus on the stage win for Richie, and discounting the incredible rider Pogacar, Richie would have won the final stage of the team time trial.
Do you think coming second twice makes winning it so much better? And when you get the chance to talk to Primoz, would that be your advice? You've gotten so close, just keep chipping away, and when you do win, if you do win, it's just such a better
thanks for the advice. I'll pass that on to Primoz. That's a good. Hey, sometimes I'm friends with a friend of a rider who had a disappointing close call to a big win last year, and I was like, what can I say? You had the chance to do it and you're never going to get that again. What can I say? I can't give words of encouragement. In the case of Primoz, yes, though, because there's going to be another Tour de France, and there's going to be plenty more, and he's going to have plenty more opportunities, and it will make it easier. I think, having been through all this process, also it's going to completely change. We went into this Tour this year. What's Ineos going to do? Oh, Lotto's the best team in the Tour. Oh, Lotto's going to win the Tour. Jumbo Visma, I should say. Jumbo Visma is going to win the Tour. Oh, hang on. It was won by UAE. Now, excuse me, who in January said UAE will win the Tour de France this year? Yeah. I said some comments to friends in person about UAE this year. It wasn't anything like they're going to win the Tour. Trust me.
Won't be sharing it publicly then.
No, just from where they were before this Tour win. what was people's perception of the team. Obviously, they've got a 1 to 2 Chapeau. You did a fantastic job. But it's I'm just trying to put things in perspective. But of course, we're speaking today now after the tour is done. But we're talking about riders who are making plans and riding a race and riding a strategy to a completely different situation to what we now know. So we have to keep perspective. We have to keep those factors in mind.
For UAE, the team now, obviously they're heading into the 2021 Tour de France, as you said, with much different expectations. How would you build that team around Pogacar to defend that title?
Good riders are hard to get, and so get a rider like Richie alongside. That'd be a good start. You need guys who know it, guys who are there. But the one thing that I think Ineos has been so good at, having been in the situation where you're a tour leader and you need help in the mountains, to find the riders that are good enough to be in the mountains. Most of them who are good enough, they're already team leaders in their own right, or they can be a team leader in another team. So to get them to ride for you it's difficult. But that's where Brailsford has been so good in being able to align his horses to ride for the team in the best interest of the team. To build from, it's much, and it's not just, let's just find some sponsors, let's find some money and buy some riders. It doesn't work like that. It's really the whole, you have to find the riders need to be available. Most of the top riders would have already signed, or any rider who was free would have signed the contract at the latest during the tour. They would have already signed. So to get good riders to be alongside Pogacar last year, you had to start in the Tour de France last year at the latest. And then if you can acquire the signature of a rider who's willing to commit to ride for someone else, you have to keep that commitment and their focus and their loyalty towards the task and the team. And that's an ongoing thing, and an ongoing maintenance project that can go wrong at any moment. You're keeping people together in high stress situations, and so even if you get that far and get to the tour with a good rider, you still got to be out there on the road, and you've still got to have that loyalty. You've got to have that loyal, so deep seated and ingrained in every member of the team that's not going to falter. So for UAE now, they have to see what riders are on the market and put together the best riders they can. Of course, we don't know what the course is going to be like next year. So maybe you need a team of team trialists with a couple of climbers who can team time trial. Maybe you need a group of only climbers. But without knowing the course, how do you sign a rider that's probably already signed anyway to another team? And so it's it won't be easy for them. And then of course, Pogacar is going to line up at the tour next year. Everyone's going to be looking to him to ride on the front or bring back a break, or and rightly so, because he'll be favourite to win the tour normally.
How much pull do you have as a leader to select the team for the tour? Maybe you were a little bit different because you would have been 30 to 34, but him as a 21-year-old, do you think he's going to have that much pull in selecting the riders for the team?
Depends on the relationship between riders and management. So I had a really good relationship, say at BMC, with the management, and the management trusted me between the sports directors, and also I'd say I had experience, because as a rider you have to step out of your role as a rider and look at the team as a whole, and that's where Pogacar at 21, I don't know him personally, but he in his mind, I'd kind of put that responsibility on someone else's shoulder. I think would be the best thing, because as a rider, you've got your own emotions and your own opinion, which is maybe skewed because you saw them in a race situation when but then there's other factors involved. And one thing that at the end of my career I sort of came to a realization was to manage a team is an easy job. I don't envy the team managers, but I think for Pogacar, even if he had this ability to choose, I think he'd probably be better to free himself of that stress and leave it up to the team to try and build a good and solid team around him. He's going to have enough to deal with just being human and staying the guy he is for the next 12 months, I think.
Yeah, big time.
How hard is it to build that same motivation for the Tour, to build that same drive, the amount of training and work that you have to put in to win the Tour de France after you've already won it? So you're going back again.
I think depends on the individuals a lot, but in Pogacar's, he's very young, he's energetic, he doesn't have a family, or I don't think he probably doesn't have kids and stuff. So that's one thing that he's like, where do I go? Do I go to 3 weeks to altitude camp and not see my family? Or that when you get in later in life, you're asking yourself those questions. You go to the airport to go to a training camp or a race, and your little kids. I remember a situation where my son was crying in the car because when we pulled up to the airport, we realised I was going away. Oh my god, hearts. I think for Pogacar, the fact that he's already done it also makes it easier because the team will have a lot more faith in him. Everyone around him knows, okay, no, this isn't to maybe win the Tour or be good. Oh, this is to win the Tour. So in some ways it'll be easier. He knows he can do it. He knows what needs to be done to do it. Apart from having a team and being a favourite, that's going to be a learning experience for him, a very steep learning curve for him. But I think in some ways it's actually easier. Unless your only goal in life was to only win one Tour. But as a cyclist, you sort of get used to the fact that you win on Sunday and there's another race on maybe Tuesday and there's another one on Thursday and another one on Saturday and another one on Sunday. And he was star of the show in Paris on Sunday, but it's the World Championships next Sunday.
Going forward, we've had 2 super young winners, Bernal, Pogacar. Who do you see having the more successful career? I mean, it's impossible to choose now, but if you had to pick, which one would you go with?
That's a really interesting question. I really don't know. I don't know.
There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer.
I don't know them personally. That's a. Speaking of like how Pogacar's life is going to change now. Well, who thought on the end of the Tour de France last year that anyone would beat Bernal in 2020?
Yeah. No one, I don't think.
So now seeing Pogacar's ride on Saturday, who's going to think in 2021 anyone can beat him? But look, if you follow the Bernal track, and you think of Pogacar, I'd be betting money on Primoz.
I guess it comes back to the expectations and the whole environment change that you were talking about.
Yeah. This environment changes, but all of a sudden you go out training like you do on your same training road, but people stop you on the road for a photo. People, and you're like, hang on, I just want to train. I've done this every day for 10 or 20 years, but now people don't let you train. People don't let you live. People don't let you go to sleep. People don't let you go to the supermarket and buy some bananas because you need them to go out training or something. Or, that's that's where the environment changed. Maybe that happened for Bernal. Maybe the back injury he had. Maybe the lockdown. All these things. There's so many factors involved. But it's hard to say what it is without speaking with him personally about it. But that's an interesting thing to follow, and I think in sport in general, which I think like we're all fans and we all cheer for the winner, but what I find really interesting in sport is following the young riders through their career, and I find it really refreshing that there's a lot of people who look into this and follow riders. It's like, there's a big talent, whether it's let's say if we went through the stage winners of the Tour de l'Avenir last year and looked at them again in 3 years, it's a really interesting way to follow, and it's of course, the talent scouts do it, but as cycling fans in the media, we only see and hear about the favourites and who won, and whereas there's this whole other level that sports it's sometimes underestimated. But I'm just thinking, well, if we make this, we'll it's the same with Jan Ulrich. Jan won the Tour at 23. This guy's going to win 8 Tour de France's. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. People are going to say, "Oh, this guy's going to win forever." But that's what we were talking about with Bernal last year.
Yeah. But where's Bernal this year? So, yeah.
Why do you think there's so many, like the last couple of years, super young riders just coming in and dominating? It feels like 5-10 years ago, this wasn't the case, really, for 21-year-olds to be coming and winning Tour de France, winning stages of the Tour. It's incredible.
I don't know. I had a feeling with the shift that cycling was making, where everyone's becoming so much more focused and concentrated, that the longevity of riders would be reduced. Just for the things that I touched on before, at a certain point, the commitment required to be at the top level now is forever. For the top guys, I think it's the same. For the below the top guys, if we just speak for numbers terms, the guys in the top 10 of the Tour 10 years ago were making a certain amount of commitment and sacrifices in their training, and how dedicated they were to training, and how structured their training was, how good the people were around them, coaches, biomechanists, dietitians, sports psychologists, whoever group of people that they're choosing to work with, how good they were. Now, maybe everyone in the top 100 has that same level that everyone in the top 10 had 10 years ago. And so this commitment, you can't do it for 20 years because it's time away from home, it's time away from family, and you just can't get to a certain point in life and I just want to be human. Or so then cycling becomes more like tennis or gymnastics or swimming, where it's like, oh, okay, it's time to be an adult now. I'm not enjoying this like I once did. I had my opportunity. So I think that'll continue, where riders' careers will be more condensed, more concentrated. Why this? I'd like to think this thrust of talent that's come through now is cycling is becoming more international and drawing on a broader pool of talent. Hence, like the arrival of guys like Sagan and Primoz and Pogacar, guys from countries a little bit further afield than the normal Europe, and then guys start to come from America. Some talent's coming out of Australia and so on. And I'd also just like to think that over the years, and not so much these last few years, but the last sort of 10 to 15 years, I'd also like to think it's because of the great progress made in anti-doping.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the guys who are young at 15 or 18 or 20, they win, and they're winning at 25 and they're winning at 30. So it's the same ones. The ones that are average juniors and then have 5 years incredible professional careers, which if you look back at history and sort of 90s and so on, it's unfortunate there's a few riders that follow that pattern.
Yeah.
On Roglic, he's obviously completely different to the two riders we were just touching on in age. He came to the sport quite late. Why is he so good? Because apart from that last stage, he was unbelievable all tour, as was his team.
Huge talent, great physical specimen, so to speak, to use one of a better word. Big motor would be the appropriate term, and great athlete, and like in the head, huge drive, solid, and they had a fantastic team about them this year. Jumbo Visma, Strade Bianca, and Milan San Remo, the two it's like, I can't imagine the odds is going to be so high on some of their riders to win the Worlds next weekend.
Wout van Aert.
Wout van Aert, wild.
Well, you'd say it's going to be too hard for him, or they normally say, but look how he was in the mountain stages. So it's like, that's who my pick is, actually.
One last question.
I haven't even seen the course, to be honest. But
neither have I, but I've just heard it's hard. So I'm saying Wout van Aert can do it all. One last question from me. How have you become such good buddies with Primoz? What's the story there?
Just by chance, I was doing a Gran Fondo for organised by my ex-teammate, Steve Marabito, and Primoz was there doing it for a bit of a training ride or something. He was there with his manager and his wife, and we just started talking, and we did the whole ride together, easy. And we just spoke, and his interest was, as he was still a relative newcomer to cycling, because we're going back 2015, 2016, and he's a super nice guy, really great guy. And just by chance, I was out there doing this ride with him, and my Stefania, who's an ex-skier, was with his wife, who's also an ex-skier, and they just became friends at the same time. So when we got to the finish, they were there talking to each other, and they would become best friends. And they both had a little guy in their stomachs of the same age as well, so they had a lot in common between their past careers and their future careers. Hey, I've got a guest.
He's your guest.
Oh,
Put your mask on.
Great.
Two for the price of one, Alex. Simone Clark.
Yeah. How good's this?
Put you on the loudspeaker. There you go, man. You're already kitted up. I want to go for a ride with him. I'm going to go for a gravel ride on my own now. There you go.
You guys linking up for a ride, Cadel?
Yeah, but I'm talking to you.
Come on.
How many Ks do you do? I don't have time to ride.
What are you doing, Simon? Are you doing you got the Vuelta or Giro?
Worlds, actually. Worlds on Sunday. And then Giro, yeah. So
cool.
Bit of racing coming up.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Worlds course.
I haven't seen it. I don't know a whole lot, but the people I've spoken to said there's not 1 meter of flat. So although there's no really significant climbs, they said it's just up and down all day. So interesting. It's going to be interesting Worlds. I don't think I've done a Worlds course probably with this style of just up and down the whole time. So it'll be something different.
And the week after the tour as well. That adds another crazy element.
Yeah, I mean, no one really knows if it's a good thing to have done the tour and have the tour legs, or whether everyone will just be cooked and maybe it was better doing the Torino or Adriatico program.
Yeah.
Time will tell. I look back at London Worlds and Vinokurov, who underperformed or was under expectations in the tour, but then came out and won the London Olympics as a week after thing. But also everyone went into the tour with less racing base, so it's probably going to tax them more. So will they be able to recover in time? Because we're talking about Wout van Aert for the Worlds, but of course he's been at the front every day riding and going deeper than nearly anyone. Will he be able to come up and...
I think as much as we like to look at history to give us an idea of how things are going to go, I think this year's result in the Tour de France is pretty evident that we can't really look at history and predict what's going to happen, because there are 21-year-olds to come out and beat world time trial champions in the last week of the Tour de France was an amazing effort and something that we've never seen before. So I think this Worlds will probably see something again that we haven't seen before.
Totally unpredictable.
Yeah. Sitting here trying to predict it, I think it's a pretty hard task.
Yeah. Actually, if I might reiterate one of my predictions for the tour, that was one I did get right. There's going to be a few surprises because of the lack of, my thing was because of the lack of racing and people going to the tour. No one went to the tour with so little racing and everything so changed. Everyone was in an unknown, so they can't gauge their efforts as well. And so, there's going to be ones that come. There's ones that are going to go down in flames, and other ones that are going to go.
Yeah,
I was expecting more to go down in flames, to be honest. But anyway, all right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Cadel. Thanks for joining us, Simon, too. For a little special feature at the end there.
Yeah.
Speak with you guys. Glad to speak with some Aussies. This is my first day speaking Aussie for a while. I had a conference call before this, but I better go and make a coffee for this gentleman here. He's got a Worlds to get ready for. So
thanks for chatting with us. Real treat.
Thanks for having me along, guys. And good luck and stay safe, stay sane. And it's not long now. Just as you get freedom, my life becomes more constricted. All right.
All the best. Good luck,
Thanks,
Simon.
Isaac. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, mate. Catch
See
up.
ya.
See ya.
See ya.